What's up? What's up? What's up? It's Rick on the Rocks and Dad Fantasy Baseball Preview and the Sweet 16 Extravaganza. I don't know, it wouldn't be week one, but yeah.
No.
So yeah, today we're going to be talking about, and just those of you who are going to be watching this in the next few days, the first half of the show, we're going to be talking about fantasy baseball that's coming up, and Dad's going to explain that because he's the guru on that one. That's not really my field. And then the second half, Shaka's here. Ooh, Shaka. And then the second half, we're going to be talking about the Sweet 16, the NCAA Basketball Championship. So know that this is Thursday, March 22nd. So if you're watching this in a few days, you'll have kind of a point of reference, I guess. We just didn't want anybody to get confused. Or if you don't like fantasy football and want to skip ahead.
Fantasy baseball.
Oh, fantasy baseball. We did so much football. Fantasy baseball, skip ahead to the NCAA stuff. That's totally cool, too. So we just want to let everybody know. So Dad's going to talk a little bit about fantasy baseball, which I have a lot of questions because I've never done it. When I got him to start playing fantasy football, I created a monster. So Dad does fantasy football. He does fantasy hockey. He does fantasy baseball. Have you done fantasy golf?
No.
Okay. Are those the only three that you've done?
Yes, on a season-long basis.
On a season-long basis.
Yes.
Okay. But, of course, they have fantasy NASCAR. They have fantasy golf. They have fantasy UFC. Yeah. They've got every kind of fantasy. If there's a sport, I'm sure soccer, I'm sure is huge. I'm sure there's rugby. I'm sure there's all that kind of stuff. And basketball, of course, which, I'm the guy, I got to be honest. I have my teams, and I sort of follow along with my teams during the year, but I don't start watching basketball to the playoffs because, to me, that's the most exciting time. So, and especially college basketball in particular. So, Dad, start us off.
Yeah, the reason I look kind of lumpy here today is because it's a twofold day. See, I've got my Cub thing on here. But underneath is my Florida State shirt.
Repping FSU.
Florida State is playing Gonzaga
tonight
at around about 10 o'clock. So the funny thing is, even though I'm pretty much a Florida State lifer, I many years ago started watching Gonzaga, particularly the late night games where they'd be playing St. Mary's or Portland or someone out on the West Coast, and I got to start following them. So I really like them. And so we'll see what happens tonight. But fantasy baseball is kind of a horse of a different color because it's the last of the three sports that I did. I started out doing fantasy football first. Then I got into fantasy hockey. And by the way, I am in the second week of the championship round in my fantasy hockey league. I have a 6-4 lead right now.
I'm telling you, he's a machine.
Yes, I am a machine. So
I'll go over to his house and he'll be like, "Hey, just stay right there. I'll be back. I've got to go make sure my team's put together."
Yeah, because
and he'll disappear in the back for half an hour and come back.
Right. I'll tell you how fanatical I am about it. Well, not fanatical, but how I do it. I had the unfortunate, or maybe fortunate, occurrence of spending a couple days in the hospital this past weekend. Yeah. And
he's okay. Everything checked out.
Yeah, as you can see, I'm perfectly fine.
He was dehydrated. That's all it was.
Yeah, and which is kind of weird. As much as much water and stuff as I my potassium level was low after all 8,000 tests. But anyway, I call up my brother, and I said, "Do you think you can go take care of my fantasy hockey league for? Because I'm in the playoffs. If I miss out one day of not having my lineup set, why I could lose the whole thing." So my brother, who knows actually absolutely nothing about the fantasy realm, with my instruction from the hospital, was able to set my lineup for that particular night. So
did a good job. A good job.
So. Yeah, and it did. And so anyway, now on to fantasy baseball. I started fantasy baseball. I had friends who were doing fantasy baseball quite a few years ago, particularly Sammy and some others that I know. And I held off because of the fact that it's a long season and I didn't know whether, I would like it or whatever. But once I started it, I really enjoy it. But it's pretty intensive because they play so many games that you don't get a day off. So now,
so you're saying it's
much like I do with fantasy football and fantasy hockey, I'm not only playing with 2 or 3 season-long fantasy baseball teams, but of course I'm doing daily fantasy.
So it's like a huge investment of your time.
Yeah, so
which is why I've never done it. Yeah,
in my time, which is good. I'm not working.
Oh, you're retired. Yeah, I know.
So
I'm not retired yet. Give me a few years.
Because I've been kind of recovering, getting my strength back and everything, and because there was a lot of uncertainty with the free agents signing here in baseball, I was kind of putting off doing any of my fantasy baseball drafts. And then all of a sudden last night at about 10 minutes of 10, I said to myself, Self, why don't you click onto ESPN and see if there's a draft coming up here in the next few minutes that might be what you're looking for. So I jumped on board, and actually I was able to get into a draft that started at 10 o'clock. One hour and 42 minutes later, the draft ended. You'll have to remember
So you're up to almost midnight doing a fantasy baseball
draft?
Yeah,
absolutely. My back was killing me because you didn't want to move, you didn't miss anything. So it was a lot of fun. It was a bunch of good guys. I don't know who they are. They were apparently based out of Pittsburgh, some of them, but we had 9 of the 10 teams represented by a live person, so only one person was doing an auto draft, and they all seemed pretty knowledgeable. So it was
now with fantasy baseball, because I know that we've done when we've taken on multiple fantasy football teams and/or hockey. Is fantasy baseball one of the fantasy sports that you probably don't want to do the whole auto thing?
No,
the auto draft.
The fun to me is first. The fun starts by doing the draft. I mean, it's a crapshoot because you're drafting based on A, what a player did last year, and B, what you project him to do this year, and you only have one pick per round. I was the number 7 pick, or I had the 7th pick of each round, which meant that I drafted 7th, 14th, and so forth and so on for 25 long rounds. And
that's a lot of rounds.
Yeah. Well, you have 10 players drafting, or 10 teams drafting 25 players each. And that's just how long it takes. There's just no 2 ways about it. And so anyway, let me just give you a quick rundown here of the categories. I was in this happened to be a head-to-head category, standard league snake draft, which means you draft 1 through 10 and 11 back up through 20 and around, just like a snake. Let me see a snake, like that. The categories in the draft last night, there were 5 categories for batters, 5 categories for pitchers. Runs, home runs, RBI, stolen bases, and batting average was for the batters. Then the pitchers were strikeouts, wins, saves, earned run average, and then the ever popular whip. The whip is walks plus hits per innings pitched.
Okay.
It's sort of a sabermetric-y thing.
Oh, the puppy jet's like, what are y'all doing up here?
Let me just tell you who the first 10 picks in the draft last night were before we get into anything else. The first 10 picks were Mike Trout was the number 1 pick, which is pretty universal in all of the drafts, and Jose Altuve, Nolan Arenado. Kershaw from the Dodgers was the first pitcher picked. then Mookie Betts, Goldschmidt from Arizona. I took at number 7, I took Blackmon from Colorado Rockies, then Harper, then Judge, then Correa. Those were the first 10 picks. So, and then we went on from there. So
now, do people, because you and I have our thing with fantasy football, that if we can right out of the gate grab a really great quarterback and a wide receiver combo, we've done that before in the past. Now, and a lot of people think the quarterback thing, some people will wait till like the 4th round to pick up a quarterback because they want to grab running backs and they want to grab wide receivers and that sort of thing. What do you think is the most important position? Now, I understand you're working with 25 people or a 25-man roster. Is it do people hold off on pitchers, or are they all over pitchers like that fast?
It's the same as happens in fantasy football. You just never know, and you have to be ready for it. I tried to what I planned on doing to start with was getting a batter, someone who I knew was going to do well for me across the board as a batter, and then try to get a pitcher at number 14, which I did. I got Max Scherzer, by the way. And
Scherzer.
Yeah. For instance, ESPN's rankings for this year in their top 300 or whatever they call it have Trout, Altuve, they have Kershaw 3rd, then they have Kenley Jensen, the relief pitcher from the Dodgers, 4th, then Joey Votto, Arenado, Betts, Harper, Blackmon, and Corey Kluber, the pitcher. So they have what, 3 pitchers in the top 10. But it's pretty well recognized that there's only 3 or 4 pitchers, Kershaw being one, Scherzer, probably Madison Bumgarner, and then who knows. I ended up last night with some really good pitchers. I grabbed Verlander from Houston. I was just
now. Is the pitcher what makes the team, or do you need big bats, or is it a combination?
Well, because it's 5 and 5. For instance, hockey, I'm in the playoffs right now. There are 7 offensive categories, and then there's only 3 goalie categories. So ultimately, and which is what's happening with me right now, I'm winning 6 of the 7 offensive categories. And kind of holding my own in the goalie categories. Fantasy baseball is a little different because it's 5 and 5. You have to be aware that of a balance. The X factor is that pitchers aren't pitching every day.
True. Okay.
Okay.
Well, and you're also dealing with 160 plus games in a season, which causes streaks.
A lot of streaks, a lot of injuries. That's why it takes a lot of time to really be committed to it. And I can tell you this, there were literally, because I kept looking yesterday, there were literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of drafts yesterday on ESPN.
Wow.
I don't know how many there were.
Now you can do drafts on Yahoo, MLB.com, and ESPN.com.
Yeah, those would be the main sites. The 2 main sites are Yahoo and ESPN. And I don't know what the numbers are, but they're huge.
Yeah, we like the freebie ones because that way we can spend our money, especially during football season, to go to Buffalo Wild Wings and look at the cute waitresses and eat wings and nachos.
Yeah. The other thing to remember is this is even though I get a bit obsessive about playing fantasy anything, is that it's still meant to be fun. It's a game, okay? Now, I'm obsessive. If I have, for instance, this year with my hockey, I had 3 teams. my expectation was to make the finals, to make the championship rounds with one of those teams. Two, I would have liked better, but I ended up with a real good team in the championships, and it appears as though if I can hang on here for a couple more days, that I'll be playing. I'm the #1 seed. I finished with the best record in the league. That I'll be playing the guy who finished with the #2 record, with the second best record, because he's leading in his bracket right now.
We are very competitive people, and that's just the way that it is.
So the other thing is since it's fun, a lot of people like to, and I noticed this again last night, if you're a Pittsburgh Pirate fan, or you're a Detroit Tiger fan, or like us, if you're Cub fans, yeah, it's nice to have Bryant or Rizzo or Addison Russell or Contreras. I got mad last night because Contreras, the Cubs catcher Wilson Contreras, got grabbed right in front of me, and I was holding off.
How pissed off were you?
Yeah. But that happens. I was sitting there with notepad, with the 3x5 cards, which is what I use, and scrolling down, see who was coming up in the draft.
Now, can you go back and like trade players with other teams?
Well, there was already somebody last night who put up, there's a message board that runs down the side, and early on there was someone said, I'm always open to trade, so I'm sure there'll be some trade.
Because you know, the one thing that Dad and I think has been our secret to fantasy football is that he's obsessive about trading and picking up players constantly, and we do it. We found that we do it probably twice, 3 times as much.
Well, I for sure pick up way more players off the waiver wire.
Okay.
Than anybody in the league.
Trade, but yes,
yeah.
The waiver wire.
I make, in baseball, I do more trades than I do probably in the other sports. Trades are kind of funny because well, they're not funny, but you're trading away something, but obviously you want to get something back to fill a need. And in baseball, I think it's a lot easier to make trades happen and to make them equitable. And ESPN has a rule against that they're, I don't know how much they enforce it, so that one player who maybe is taking advantage, let's put it that way, of other players who aren't quite up on it or aren't quite as interested in it, grabbing their best players and that sort of thing. So they do,
which is good.
They do keep track of that. So,
all right. Do we have any more last minute questions about the fantasy?
Well,
I'm sure we're probably gonna come back, like, I don't know, weekly, bi-weekly. We're still gonna keep up with the fantasy baseball, just because
maybe once a month or something.
Yeah, like once a month that'll work. That works.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's something that Dad's gonna be doing and invest a lot of time in. So it's always check in, and I know a lot of people out there to play. Like, I have a lot of friends that play fantasy baseball, have full-time jobs, have kids, and are still playing. Will come home and stay up till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning managing their fantasy baseball team. So it's obviously something that a lot of people really are interested in.
Yeah, and I mean, we were drafting people last night, or players last night, that already have injury problems. Okay, and that's all part of this. And if you're drafting top pitchers, or any pitchers for that matter, who knows when they're gonna, get hurt? And it's just all part of it. It happens in fantasy baseball, fantasy football, fantasy hockey. It's just one of those things, and you just have to keep at it. And the main thing is to have fun. Grab a bunch of players that you're interested in. Get with a group of guys that you don't even have to know any of them. Obviously, I just jump on. I look at the names that if the teams that they've set up so far in the league, and see if it looks like something a bunch of guys I might be compatible, or girls that I may be compatible with, because quite a few girls and women play. More so, I think, baseball than
Really?
than anything else. Some football.
I know quite a few women play fantasy football, but
Yeah.
that's only been the last few years. It's
The
kinda-
last couple of years it's been more and more. I noticed this year in doing drafts, or this
I
past season.
love a woman that can talk football, because they are passionate as hell about it. Love it.
Yeah. So
Like our friend Kimmy, for example.
yeah.
So there's a fantasy baseball, and like we said, I keep saying fantasy football. I know you know, because that's what I'm already
So
thinking.
for those of you who may not even be aware, the season starts 1 week from today.
Right.
For some reason, they're starting it, I guess, scheduling-wise. For instance, our Cubbies are playing down in Miami for 4 days, starting a week from today, as a matter of fact. And
It's going to be really funny, because there's going to be like 70% Cubs fan to 30%.
Yeah, they've traded away their whole team, so it's going to be quite interesting.
Yeah.
So
They don't even draw. They draw about as well as the Tampa Bay Rays do, which is.
Yeah, there was one guy last night, for instance, that was grabbing up as many Yankees as he could. He took Aaron Judge way ahead of where he probably should have, and grabbed some of the other guys. And of course, Stanton's on that team, and they have a nice looking team. Gary Sanchez, the catcher. I mean, heck, they could hit a bazillion home runs, but who knows? But that's why it's so much fun. We're looking forward to a great season. This wasn't designed as any great revelation. We just thought it'd be a good thing to jump in and let you know that this is something that we can all participate in and have a good time. And since we've done football,
you sound very like up with people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who doesn't like high self-esteem?
Yeah, absolutely. So, whatever.
All right, so let's move on, because we've only got a few minutes left, but we wanted to spend at least a few minutes talking about the Sweet 16, because unfortunately last week I was in, which actually proved to be a lot of fun. Last week I was on a business trip in Nevada, and I was there for
business.
Well, my business. It was my business.
I'm in the hospital. He's in Reno.
I didn't leave until after you were out of the hospital.
Well, it seemed.
I took you to the hospital.
Oh, well, that's true.
That is true.
That is true.
So, which I find funny, the entire state of Nevada is on fire because of Nevada being in the Sweet 16, and especially the way that they've won their games. And it was exciting because these people are rabid fans.
Yeah, they have a nice team, I must say.
Yeah, they do. I didn't realize how good their team was. It's so the game's Thursday night. We've got in the South, in Atlanta, playing in hot Atlanta, Kansas State and Kentucky. And then the next game, that's the late game, right?
Well, you've got Loyola Chicago.
Loyola Chicago,
Versus
Nevada.
Which it should be a really fun game to watch.
And Loyola Chicago is a really good team as well.
The funny thing is, when I was a wee sports fan in the early 60s, there were two teams in Chicago that were very good. One of them was DePaul, D-E-P-A-U-L, and they had a legendary coach by the name of Ray Myers. And the other one was Loyola Chicago. And I'm sure that most people, they may have read it now, but Loyola Chicago was coached by a man by the name of George Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
In 1963, Loyola Chicago won the NCAA championship.
See, I did not know that.
Okay. Most people don't know that. And that was before all of the powerhouse teams started recruiting Chicago quite as heavily as they did. Some of the kids out of Chicago, the basketball players, did go to the University of Illinois back when they had a decent team. And Lord knows you have to have been around a long time to remember that.
Time ago.
But then ultimately, teams started coming into the Chicagoland area because there are some great basketball players and teams there, high school teams. And now those kids, almost none of them stay in state. They go all over the country. Terrific program. But that's what's so amazing about Chicago Loyola is that they actually were in the tournament and won it in 1963. And since then, not a whole lot. So,
and then
well, they have Sister Jean, the nun, their 98-year-old nun that is their mascot and their chaplain and everything. So I think that's going to be a fun game. I'm really looking forward to that game.
And then we've got the games on TBS. We have
Florida. Oh, and by the way, I hate Kentucky. So
I knew that. I was waiting for that to come up. So I'll take Kansas State. I like Kansas State.
I don't particularly like Kansas State either. But.
The late game on TBS tonight is Gonzaga versus our beloved Florida State Seminoles.
Well, the early game is number 3 Michigan versus 7 Texas A&M. I think we're going to root for Texas A&M, are we?
Yes, but I hope my friend Greg does not hate me because of it. It's just,
This is all in fun.
This is all in fun. Go blue.
Yeah.
I'm wearing blue. I don't know what to think about. I'll pull for Nevada and Kansas State and obviously FSU and Texas A&M. But I think all 4 of these games are really great matchups tonight.
These are fun games. These look like some good games. I'll really enjoy it. Unfortunately, I also have a full hockey schedule tonight, but I can do both.
Busy.
I can do both. I still haven't been totally cleared by the doctor yet. That won't happen till my visit next Tuesday. So I'm still sucking down extra potassium and kind of changing my diet around a little bit. So,
have you been hitting the Sizzler lately?
Yeah.
The all you can eat.
I can make time for all these games. Believe me, I can. So, and I'll enjoy them. I love college basketball. I really do.
So, and then on Friday night, we've got the early game on TBS is Purdue, Texas Tech, which I've got to be honest, I don't know much about either one of those teams, nor have I watched any of those teams play. I've seen all the teams from Thursday night. I've seen all of those teams play, so I've got a little bit better point of reference. And maybe the best game is the Villanova West Virginia. That's what I was about to say, which is the 7 o'clock game on TBS on Friday.
That could be a terrific ball game. Purdue and Texas Tech. Purdue lost one of their big men, and I think that game could go either way. I honestly don't have a clue who's going to win that. The West Virginia Villanova game could be quite good. West Virginia's coach Huggins has been around forever.
Yeah, long time.
And he's a terrific coach. And Villanova, the coach there, Jay Wright, has done a terrific job with that program. And I guess them and Kansas are the 2 number 1 seeds that are left. So,
yeah.
Now, speaking of Kansas, they're playing Clemson in the early game in another bracket that on Friday, and then Syracuse and Duke. Those 2 games, I don't know.
I think Kansas. I don't think
Duke shouldn't have any problems with Syracuse. I don't think.
No.
Excuse me. I dislike Clemson because they're in the ACC and they're a big foe of
nothing else we're honest
of
folks.
Florida State. But I'm not a big Kansas fan, so.
Nor is Dad a big Mike Krzyzewski fan.
No. So well, those are all ACC teams. So obviously, I'm not saying we're going to root against them, but
But all in all, and especially Thursday night, some really fantastic games.
So
really good teams in the Sweet 16.
Let's just go out on a limb and whom is going to be our final two. We have our brackets in front of us. Whom is playing in the championship to whom?
Okay, betting with like going with my head, not my heart.
It doesn't matter. There's no money involved. We have no bets.
I would think Michigan and Kansas, but that's me.
Michigan and Kansas.
I would say Michigan and Kansas.
All right. I am going to go. Well, I'm going to what I thought was going to happen to start with. And that was as much as I hate to go against Florida State, and I won't. I'll be rooting for Florida State. But I like Gonzaga to go to the championship game, certainly the Final Four. And coming out of the other side, Villanova's playing really well.
Yeah, I figured you were going to go with them.
Yeah.
I'm on the fence about that, but yeah.
And then the championship, I don't know. I think you have to go with Villanova. I'm going to be rooting for Gonzaga or hopefully Florida State. But
yeah, they surprised the hell out of us so far. We didn't think they'd get to the Sweet 16.
No, I didn't.
We had a whole conversation about how they even got in to begin with.
Well, the second half of the season, they were
bad.
They were underachieving. They have some good players.
They do. They've got talent.
They've done a nice job of recruiting the last few years. There's 3 kids off of their team from last year playing in the NBA right now. A fourth one could be Terrence Mann, who's the leader of the team this year.
Right.
Would have been a high draft pick, and he chose to come back to school. So,
yeah, which sounds like I don't know why, but
well,
no, he said
maybe he's one of those oddballs that wanted to get a degree.
I know those crazy kids. What are they thinking?
But I don't think he's cost himself any money by coming back. He's had a really nice year. But
and then we have any? Oh dear God. Yes, I have a new puppy. I apologize for that.
Yeah.
Yes, and it'll be the final game will be April 2nd at 9:20 Eastern Standard Time on TBS in beautiful San Antonio, Texas, one of my favorite cities.
Yeah.
Gorgeous place if you've never been there.
So hopefully we'll be back soon.
Yep.
To do some movies.
I think we're going to be the next theme that we're picking up, movies, especially we've got a lot of big movies coming out in the next month
and
or so.
We've seen movies. We've seen some good movies.
Some
of those are coming out on DVD and Blu-ray.
We could have done like an Oscar thing. But yeah, we don't really, that's not really our thing. I saw a couple of them. I will say the Gary Oldman movie was really good, especially if you're into history. Like that movie could have been super boring, and the way that they paced it and the way it was written was a damn good movie. But short of that, I haven't really. Oh, I saw the fish, what I like to call the fish pickle movie.
The what?
The fish pickle movie. The one about the merman that won Best Picture. And
got me.
The one that Guillermo del Toro did about Shape of Water. Thank you, darling.
Oh, the water movie?
Yeah, where he keeps pulling his fish pickle out.
Okay.
To give it to the girl. Yeah. It was interesting. It's like a modern day fable gone ape shit. Like, it's very odd. Yeah, I don't know if that was movie of the year, but like I said, I haven't really seen any of the other ones. A bunch of movies came out. Justice League. The new Star Wars is out, not on demand, but digital download, digital buy, whatever.
By the way, for those of you who may be interested, and it's more along our lines, is the new Deadpool trailer came out today.
Yes, the new Deadpool 2 trailer came out today. And of course, right now, and I saw it as soon as I got up this morning on my Twitter feed, they're showing 2 separate cuts of the movie to people. One that's just like what they would do, like a standard cut, and one that's got all of the new stuff, including a secret cameo that they're making people write off on non-disclosure agreements. And of course, everybody's buzzed with what it is. Everyone's first thought is that it's Hugh Jackman, which would make sense to me, but I don't know. He was so adamant about putting away the Wolverine character, so I don't know if they went and found another person to play Wolverine. I would doubt it, but I would almost think it would have to be Hugh Jackman.
I don't know.
I don't know.
The other thing today that I saw earlier, and I was telling Rick about it, he hasn't seen it yet. I saw a posting from our good buddy Kevin Smith,
Yeah.
who, following his heart attack, is doing nicely and has already dropped 20 pounds.
Yep.
And his face is so thin he's hardly recognizable, just at 20, but he's shooting for 50.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's good. He's trying to get back on the road to health, and
absolutely,
we wish him the best.
And
send him prayers.
Yes, we are.
Take that, Twitter. I said it. What? All right. Well, thanks so much again for checking out Rick on the Rocks and Dad. This was the fantasy baseball preview and Sweet 16 kind of overview. But keep looking at Rick on the Rocks, our Facebook page. Make sure you like it. Also, check out rickontherocks.com. We'll be letting you know some of the movie specials we'll be doing. So, everybody take care. Have a great week. Go FSU.